And we're back. It's season 3 of the Talky Taka podcast with a few changes this season. For one, we have a new host. Our old host has taken up to the stage. He's going to be acting at a theater near you anytime now. So good luck to Swag on that. I'm sure we'll get him in for an episode or two down the season. But the other faces are the same old ones. RK is in the studio with us today, and Ashwin. RK, how's the summer break been, and how was the first weekend of sport?
Yeah, hey guys, so a lot of things happened for United over the summer. It's been like a silent revolution. Like as Johnny even said, a lot of people are not even happy about it because of all the firings and stuff. But it's been an interesting summer and an interesting first game of the season. I think one of the standout moments for me was, there was a 2-on-1 breakaway and somehow, Fulham messed it up. Harry Maguire made a, kind of goal saving, intervention, and the reaction from the crowd cheering him was really awesome because of all the, kind of criticism that he has gone through. And maybe, Ashwin can talk more about that because he was there in person. But yeah, that's one of my moments of the week as well.
It's nice. Ashwin, he gave you a little entry in there. You were there at Old Trafford, and I know that the entire weekend was defined by the day before where you did a tour of Anfield. I'm sure that was the highlight of your weekend. So, talk us through your weekend and the summer break.
Yeah, so it was actually the same day. It was the opening fixture, right? So on Friday, I got to see two iconic stadiums in Anfield and Old Trafford. Old Trafford for the game, obviously. I think as far as the summer is concerned, it almost felt like we didn't get a break because you had the Euros, you had Olympics, like so much stuff going on, and new European champions, new Olympic football champions, uh, and same old Spain, like they win everything it seems. But yeah, it was great to be at the season opener. It's always that time of the year when everyone is optimistic, whether you are a Man United fan or a bloody Ipswich fan or a Chelsea fan or whatever it is, right? Because like this is the only way is down up depending on how things go. So for me, the talking moment of the week or the game week is Xerxes' goal. I think at till that point we had played okay, but we hadn't like stormed them out of the park or anything of that sort. And for Xerxes to come, it wasn't like I didn't feel that it was the most inspirational signing. I always felt like he's still not match fit, so and he hadn't had a good few minutes until he scored that goal as well. But for him to score that goal at the 87th minute and the crowd just going wild, and it was just brilliant to watch it in person.
Yep, I think a couple of optimistic United fans. Where have we seen that on an opening episode of the Talky Taka podcast?
Well. If you remember last season, we were all very optimistic, and then it went all south. So
Yeah,
let's just be cautious.
yeah.
And,
I
and
was I
also,
was just
talking of optimism, Chelsea fans seem to be the most pessimistic, and that's why probably they're missing from the squad as well.
yeah, like when Ashwin mentioned that hey, the only way is up or down. The first club I could think of when the only way was down was was Chelsea, and we can say anything we want about Chelsea. And Swag, if you want to stop us, join the pod, Swag or Ab. But yeah, coming to my talky moment, and yeah, I almost forgot that the Euros happened this summer. It seems so long ago after the Olympics. But yeah, great Euro tournament in Spain was great to watch. I'm so happy that a team that played good football won the tournament. But my talking moment of the weekend was definitely Trent. I think it's been a rough summer for him. I think for England, he started off at midfield and got hooked off, and it wasn't a very pretty sight for Trent at the Euros. Wondered whether there would be a lot of doubt surrounding him this season. He has only 1 year left on his contract. Would he play midfield? Would he play right back? He played right back, and at least in the second half, he was back to being one of the most incredible players, playmakers in the world right now. Some of the things he did was outstanding, and So he's back and the season is back. So let's get started with this episode. So our format is going to be a bit different this time. We'll talk about some of the important results right at the beginning, and then we'll get into some of the topics that interested us the most through the week, and we'll try and cover some of that. And we're going to try and keep these episodes down to 30 minutes after receiving feedback from our valued listeners. So let's get started. Some of the results that stood out, of course, you have to start with Chelsea losing to Manchester City at home 2 2-0. So Man City are off and running, Haaland is off and running. United, Ashwin talked about it, a late winner, so a good sign of things to come. Old Trafford bouncing, new boy scoring a goal. Ipswich gave Liverpool a bit of a fright at the start. It was a tough half, but then Liverpool really dominated that second half and showed maybe what might be coming with Arne Slot. Arsenal, typical solid win as well. Some of the other surprising results, definitely Brighton smashing Everton 3-0 was a surprise. Probably Leicester getting a point against Spurs, that was a bit of a surprise as well. And Aston Villa with just about doing enough to beat West Ham in terms of the score line, but they actually played quite well. So those were some of the important results from the weekend.
And
And
and you can't really go past the Chelsea City game and talking about Haaland without talking of a Chelsea's left back Cucurella, because after Spain won the Euros, his song went viral all over, and it was just waiting to happen that Haaland would just bounce him off and score a goal.
yeah, I think a couple of Chelsea players would probably not want to get reminded of the songs they were singing after summer tournaments that they were playing in. Enzo Fernandez, another one who probably wants to forget his international summer quickly. He won the tournament, but probably forget the singing after that. So let's get right down to it. Let's start with our first topic that we couldn't wait to cover: the new manager bounce. Are clubs going to see a bounce, or are one of these guys going to get the bounce really quickly? And let's start with the man. We've already talked about the club and the man in the short podcast so far. Let's start with Enzo. So, guys, before we get into Enzo, what do you guys make of the happenings at Chelsea, and how difficult a job is this for Enzo, or is it really easy?
I was kind of surprised by how well, at least for me, Chelsea played. Because following the results through preseason, it seemed like this was a team who was, giving away a lot of possession in their own third, not able to really build out from the back. It seemed like kind of the teething issues which maybe Pep Guardiola also faced early on. I mean, you never know how it's going to turn out. Is Enzo? It always seemed like probably Enzo is another kind of wild experiment for Chelsea, and I was just waiting for them to kind of implode against City, but was surprised by kind of how well they actually turned out. But uh, and also, just before the match, at least for me, it was a news. Maybe Chelsea fans knew about it beforehand, but making the other Enzo captain, rather, especially after what you said about the song and all, that was also a surprise for me, and probably it did not rub a lot of the teammates the right way, I'm sure, because there were a lot of teammates who were very disappointed with what Enzo did. Whatever happened behind the scenes to make it up, I don't think it's the right decision to make him captain. So a lot of things seem to be going wrong for Chelsea, not least the number of signings that they have made. To be honest, all of us have lost count of that. We don't even know the names, the faces. Like there are so many jokes and memes you can make about trying to guess who the signings are. So, but having said that, maybe it's serendipity, maybe it's luck. But the playing 11 is really really powerful. It's really good on paper as well. So somehow they have kind of arrived at a 11 which can kind of make it work at least over a period of time.
Yeah, I would kind of argue, I would argue on the fact that Chelsea probably have the strongest central midfield on paper. Like you could talk about the Arsenals and the Cities and how well they gel together, but like if he can get them ticking, like it's going to be quite difficult for other teams. And in terms of Enzo and how long or short his reign might be, I don't think this game would have been the one that they would judge his performance on anyways, because I think playing City is like almost like a free hit. You do whatever you want to do, what's gonna happen to you. But actually, Chelsea did surprise me. Like they had almost equal number of shots at as City did, and then even the first goal that kind of came, came up. It was more due to the fact that the likes of Haaland and Bernardo Silva. It's almost like muscle memory for them when to shoot, when to score, when to pass, and all of that, which obviously Chelsea are missing at this point in time. I think if if they play how they played in pre-season, then he's in big trouble. But if he's able to even get to a point where he knows his starting 11 and like even some of the subs that he's substituting with, and by Christmas, if they are even in the top 6, 7, I think he's doing a decent job.
Yeah, so I mean, you talked about Enzo being the captain, RK. I mean, to be fair, he is one of the most senior players in the team. He has been there for over 18 months. Okay, so that's not something to balk at. His tenure at the club is probably a little bit more than some of the age of the people, higher than the age of the some of the people that Chelsea are signing. So let's address the elephant or the 40 elephants in the room. How is the biggest challenge that Enzo has this season, Enzo Maresca has this season, knowing who his players are, like who to call, like what name to save, and trying to get somebody off the bench and bringing them on the pitch? How is he even going to get started thinking of a team that gels when you have 40 people and they're still signing, they're still going? Just as we speak, Joao Felix is about to sign for Chelsea. I mean, how is this happening? And is it all going to come crashing down? Is it a master stroke? How is he going to take? How is he going to deal with all of these players?
I really don't know. Like it's definitely being set up for failure, right? Like it's just too many players to like juggle with, and it's not like they are expected to go to the latter stages of every competition that they are going to be part of as well. And you mentioned about the 40 players or whatever it is, and they are going to get Jao Felix. They are linked to Sancho as well. And let's not forget, like Pedro Neto was also signed, so he's also like one of those marquee players that would be expected to start there. So it's like he's definitely set up for failure, is what I feel.
Yeah, I think Chelsea are doing, two things with the transfer operations. I mean, when you look below the madness at, whatever method there is, you can question the method, obviously, but it looks like they're doing two things. One is they're trying to build a squad or at least a set of players who can play in the here and now. So that's where you look at the signings like Pedro Neto, or you look at Joao Felix for that matter, right? Or uh, so that's where those kind of players, who go straight into the squad, and then they have this kind of, really unethical looking kind of transfer P&L operation where they're just, trying to sign, real nobodies, and 1 year later, 6 months later, they send them out. They have this whole sister concerns also, where they loan them out, where they sell them, so it looks like it's these two kind of operations which may not even be linked to each other. It like looking at some of the names of those players, kind of you can be sure that some of them won't ever play for the club. So that's one part of what they are trying to do, and it's obviously never been tried before. And from the outside, it looks like a proper recipe for disaster. And the second thing is, what is the team balance that they are building, right? We talked about them possibly being the best midfield in England over time, but then the balance of that midfield is not the best. You don't want Enzo, Caicedo, and Lavia, all of whom are kind of deep lying, who like to be deep lying midfielders. In a midfield three, you want more balance. And then on the other side, you have players like Nkunku and Joao Felix, who are at their best in probably at the tip of the diamond or attacking midfield or just behind the striker, right? So, how are you going to fit those guys in? So, definitely the way that Chelsea are building, there is a lack of balance, which is going to be a problem for them. I don't think they have solved their biggest problem, which is maybe where do they get a reliable source of goals, right? So, uh, definitely, I am not at all convinced by the transfer operation as a strategy, but somehow they seem to have accumulated good players, maybe as Ab said, when you buy 50, 60 players, you bound to get maybe 8, 10 good players.
So that's one heck of a conversion rate if it actually turns out to be that good. I would argue even their best player, Cole Palmer, would want to play in the number 10, probably. That's one
Yeah.
of his
Yeah.
best positions. So a lot of confusion, but they did play well. So maybe things are on the up there. Or maybe not. Like, I don't
It's
think
it's
three of us are.
it's when players start giving them the heat, right? Because Sterling and his camp came up and released this external statement on why he should be starting and what's happening behind the scenes, and these are the kind of things that you don't really want, because it's like that Sancho situation that happened at United as well, right? And pretty soon you'll have like morons like Lukaku and his camp doing that, because let's not forget Lukaku obviously sees him as one of the best strikers that Belgium has ever produced. So like these are the kind of things that you don't really want.
I
And
forgot Lukaku
also,
was still there.
and I think Chelsea, it's going to be interesting because I think the next 5, 6 games are on paper not that tough, probably bottom half teams. So it's going to be really interesting, and it's going to be critical also for Maresca how they do in those games.
Let's move from one to another, Baldy. What did you guys think of Arne Slot? Tricky first 45, and then suddenly the second 45 was a totally different game. What did you guys make of his first game?
You
Yeah,
have to be very specific with
Which
managers which managers now, because that seems to be like the fashion. So I watched some part of the game. I would confess I didn't watch the entire game, but I was just following all the chatter that you guys had in the group as well. And it seems that Liverpool were, if not struggling, they were definitely not at their best. And I think they couldn't have asked for a better fixture, right? Like Ipswich Town is not something that you would expect Liverpool to lose to. I think the one thing that I really liked about Arne Slot is that his decision making was very quick. Like he realized that okay, some of the players were not winning duels, so he replaced them instantly. I think it was Konza. Correct me if I'm wrong. That he replaced there, and this season is definitely, I feel this is probably Salah's last season, so he would want to end on a high. And him and Trent, I think those two look like men possessed. Like they really wanted to get out there and like cause some serious damage. So if this is like a trailer of things to come, I think Liverpool fans could be content that they could at least get top three, if not challenge for the title.
even I saw the second half of the Ipswich game, and by the way, Ashwin, I could see the excitement on your face when you started talking of bald, bald guys. So that was
That's
very
because
clear
of
to
Ten
see.
Hag. I respect him.
Yeah, but I think it was a tough first half. But like the second half, which I saw, I was pretty impressed with. Some of the positional play. You could see a very clear attempt to place uh, players between the lines so that it's easy to kind of progress the ball. I don't know if it's more to do with maybe Ipswich shape or it's something that we'll get to see more often, but that was definitely impressive in the second half was how easily they were able to find forward passes between the lines and able to move from back to front. Even I was very very impressed with what Trent did. As I think Radha was mentioning this on the group, he had that 10, 15 minute kind of a bubble spell. That was very very impressive. It is like a stroke of genius. You see that with great players sometimes have these this kind of a patch within games where you can't do anything about them. So I think overall a good start, but like Ashwin, you mentioned about him being very decisive, but we got to know about that because I think he talked a lot about that. I think that's a bit of a concern for me. Should he have talked about it so openly, naming players as well who didn't win duels? I think that is something maybe comes a bit from inexperience or naivety coming from that kind of a league. Here, the limelight is going to be much more. People are going to start pouncing on those kind of things. I mean, that's my perspective. I think that's something to be watchful about.
So to be fair, he didn't mention any names. He said that there's no point talking about tactics if we don't win duels, and that was he was addressing the team. And then he mentioned that while Kwanzaa was not the guy who lost all the duels, he decided to bring in Ibu Konate, who's a dual winner. So I think more than Kwanzaa being a guy who was not perhaps playing so well, he wanted to bring in a guy who was dominant in the air because the Delap's son, who was I think the striker for Rory Delap's son, who was a striker for Ipswich, I think he was winning a lot of duels in the air, and he brought in Konate to battle that, and he did actually battle that. So I think I agree that it was decisive and positive. And talking about it also for me, Klopp is a guy who's been talking about things, calling a spade for a long time. Very different from Brendan before him, very different from Rafa before them. So I appreciate when somebody actually gets to the point, sticks to the message. That part was good. I'm still I'm on. I Whatever I've seen in preseason has been interesting. It has been optimistic. I'm optimistic, but yeah, we need to see them play different kinds of teams. We saw them play a team which was man marking, and I think it's easy for top class fast players to really find space when somebody's man marking you, and that's exactly what happened. I think the same thing happened against Arsenal in pre-season as well, when Arsenal attempted to man mark them, and then there was 2-3 quick passes. One guy came short and then wheeled around, and Salah was through on goal again. Very similar to the goal that we ended up scoring against Ipswich as well. So let's see if they play against a deep block, how do they work it out? Let's see when they play against a slightly different tactical setup, how do they make it work? But overall, encouraging signs, I think, and also clear differences from the way Klopp played his football. There is a clear need to kind of slow things down, which we saw only in the second half. I thought first half was quite stretched, quite rapid. We were trying to release the ball quickly. But in the second half, they slowed it down. They played amongst the midfielders a bit more and created those spaces for the early pass. So that way was good progress. Very optimistic looking at what I've seen pre-season and now. Any other?
You mentioned about Delap, winning a lot of duels. Has that something to do with his childhood training, where probably his dad used to throw those, big throws into the garden, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I'm just trying to figure out how somebody who went through the City academy, who's Rory Delap's son, I wasn't able to make that entire connection in my head. But I'm sure those javelin throws of his dad helped him get up in the air and head a few of them. Any other new managers that you guys are interested in watching this season?
I was pretty interested before the game about West Ham, because I thought they have had a few good signings. Like there have been signings who have been linked to some of the better clubs. Like you talk of Guido Rodriguez, and then you talk of Fulcrook. Todibo is now there. A lot of these guys came off the bench, but I thought maybe West Ham would offer something interesting. I think it didn't turn out to be that close a game as it could have been. So probably I was a bit disappointed, I would say, by how Lopetegui came out in his first game as West Ham manager.
Yeah. For me, I mean, we don't know much about him, but the Brighton guy, what's his name, Herzler, right? So, firstly, he's so young. that itself is like.
What were you doing when you were 31? Is the question everybody's asking.
Exactly, like it's like, oh God, like how is he 31 and he's like managing teams already? So yeah, I'm just really excited about him specifically because Brighton, like over the last 2-3 years, even more than that actually, they have been a breath of fresh air almost. Last season, I think, with that next Pep Guardiola tag, that what's his name? Have you even forgotten the name of the guy?
Maresca?
What's that again?
Enzo Maresca?
No. The Brighton manager. I've just forgotten his name.
You're talking about
Deserbi. Sorry, yeah, Deserbi. So
Deserbi.
Like with all the controversy and the comparisons with Pep Guardiola, I was like really miffed about the fact that who is this guy and what does he think about him. I think this guy who not many people know about, he's kind of that unknown almost, right? So I'm really excited about Brighton, and they are top of the table. You can't deny that. So let's see where he takes them.
Moving swiftly to the next Baldy, and I think you guys will have a lot to say about this Baldy in his third season. What did you guys make of Ten Hag and United start to the season?
Yeah, I think a lot of I and just to say this upfront, we are talking against a very low base, right? I think we had a pathetic season, and whatever we are comparing to is kind of basically a pile of shit. The way, especially that we used to defend. So when you compare against that very low base, I think there were quite a few positives from the first game. Uh, Especially, we were pressing a bit higher. Uh, when I talk of the defensive line, and like we had a focus on specific triggers, so we were not kind of pressing the center backs high all the time. So there was a so there seemed to be a focus to make the shape more compact, try to push the defensive line higher, and try to make the attacking line slightly deeper, but at the same time respond to certain triggers. And that ended up, I think over the game we maybe conceded only 7 to 8 shots, which is against again a very low base of 20, 25, 30 shots a game from last season. It's a big improvement. Having said that, there were a few counters which were concerning, especially early in the game. I think there were 2 or 3 breakaways. Adama Traore was a bit of a problem early on, and I talked about my Talky moment, which is I think there someone made a mistake high up the pitch, and Maguire was basically defending 1 against 2. So there's a lot of rustiness in there, because of which some of those mistakes will get eliminated. But I think while it's defensively positive, we also created I think 4 to 5 big chances. We should have finished the game earlier. So some good signs in position as well. Some of the new signings, especially Mazraoui, I think I was very impressed with him. We'll come to him in a bit, but overall decent start, I would say. But a lot of tough games to come, especially Ashwin was talking about the Brighton one. That's the one up next. I think we'll learn a lot more as we go.
Yeah, so it's not just Brighton, Liverpool to follow after that as well. So it's not going to get any better. I think you're right, RK. Like there's definitely been an admission of what we did last year was shit, and let's not do that. And I think the fact that Martinez started this game and the fact that we had Mazraoui as well, that really helped. I think Maguire was unreal. Of course, he's still not part of the whole 10 hack system, but like he has his limitations. He embraced it, and when it matters, he came up with all the goods, all those tackles. He still had all those stray balls that he would usually try, like that. All those things were quite infuriating, of course, but like so were some other players. I think Rashford, again, I'm still a bit concerned about him. He had a decent preseason. He looked sharper than last season at least. First half, I think he was missing, which was concerning. And if he continues to do that, like I'm pretty sure one of Ahmad or Garnacho is going to take his spot away, which in the long run is probably not the worst thing, right? And in terms of the central midfield, I thought that we'll do a double pivot. We actually did not do that, right? So it was also kind of good to see that Menu getting that freedom to go a bit further. I think using that 4-2 system was also in a way a response to what happened last season. Bruno should have scored in the first half. Garnacho should have finished towards the end, and you got to take those chances, because if you look at the number of goals United have scored in the two Ten Hag seasons, it was I think 58 in the first season and 57 in the second season, which is not a lot. If you compare it with the likes of Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Spurs, even like they score much more. So it was good to get the win towards the end, but I think we really need to up the ante.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a few potential people who could take Rashford's position. You didn't mention one guy who's going to be all about the goals and assists this season, Anthony. as if you believe anything that he says on social media. But yeah, what do you guys make of United's competition for the top four? And I'm just making an assumption that United aren't going to win the title. So, who are their competitors for the top four? Do you see Spurs making it this year? Do you see Villa making it again? What are your thoughts on that?
I I I don't think United will finish top four. Like I know we were optimistic at the beginning, but optimistic is like fifth maybe and a
So
trophy.
optimism clock is at 30 minutes. It's a lot shorter than it was last season. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the most we can expect, I feel, is like fifth because if you look at the other teams, so you have Arsenal, Liverpool, City, who are like they will be top three in whatever order, and then it's probably between Spurs and Villa, and then I think Newcastle had kind of trailed off towards the middle of the season last year. I don't think they will have a similar season this time around. So I think United will probably be competing for the Europa League spot. We can hope that England gets the fifth Champions League spot, and maybe that's how we qualify for the Champions League. But I don't see United finishing top four.
Yeah, it's pretty same for me. Even I am hoping that we get 5 slots, like the league gets 5 slots. One of which will be taken up by Slot himself. But I think that's the big hope. Newcastle, I think, are going to be a threat again because just because of the fact that I think they are only playing one game a week. So that is where Eddie Howe's team seems to be, that's where they kind of have the rhythm and what works for them. Spurs, I think, in my view, they're going to be a threat. I don't know if they will ultimately finish top four, but I think they're building up the right way. There are a lot of young players. There are a lot of players now who will be able to, do what Postecoglou wants them to do. So Spurs will be there and thereabouts. Villa are also, I think, on a big project. A lot of impressive players, a lot of good signings as well. I mean, not a lot, but a few good signings. So Villa look like a project who is on the right track. So it's going to be very, very tough. The number of good managers, the kind of competition which is there in the league right now is maybe, outside the top two teams. And I am putting Liverpool also along with the rest for now. It's kind of unprecedented.
Yep, we'll get more into the top four race and the title race next week when we talk about Arsenal and Man City in a bit more detail as well. But for now, guys, why don't you think about your favorite signings or the most interesting signings that you've seen so far this summer, or a name that's probably going to happen in the next 2 weeks or so? Which is the signing that really caught your eye?
Yeah. For me, and maybe Ashwin might agree here, it's going to be Mazraoui. Uh, I had seen glimpses of him before at Ajax, and I didn't really see much of him at Bayern, but I used to like him a lot at Ajax. But this was the first time I really saw him over 70, 80 minutes after a long time, right? And Ten Hag had talked about what he looks at as the main thing that Mazraoui has, which is his composure on the ball, and that was very, very clear to see. Uh, his ability to pick a forward pass, his ability to have so much time on the ball and pick the right moment, his ability to have a pause. So I think a lot of good things that he showed in position, even defending set pieces. Mazraoui was pretty solid. I think he uses his height to good effect. So I think one of the better debuts that we have seen from United players in recent memory. You could see that the guy has class. So for me, it's Mazraoui.
Yeah, I agree. Mazurai for me as well. I think he was pretty solid in general, and he looked like a proper Ten Hag player as opposed to Van Bissaka, who we know is great defensively but not really good going forward. Uh, I want to see uh, how well he continues to do that, because it's like you've had a lot of players who have had good debuts, right? Like I think Holland had a really good debut. Yeah,
Dan James,
Dan James had a good debut. Anthony Martial
Anthony.
scored against Liverpool. Anthony, I was actually at the game when he scored against Arsenal. So like we have had a lot of false positives. So let's see. I think if I look at a non United signing, I'm actually quite excited about Dominic Solanke as well at Spurs. I think like especially with the season that he had with Bournemouth last season, so looking forward to seeing what he contributes.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited to see Yankuba Minta. I think he was really exciting at the weekend, and he showed that he can be one of those Jeremy Doku, Adama Traore kind of exciting players, absolutely blistering and lovely on the dribble. I think he's somebody that a lot of people were talking about last season as well, and I think Newcastle would have loved to have kept a hold of him if not for some of the FFP problems or the PSR problems that they were having. So, yet another potential exciting deal from Brighton, who just keep doing this again and again. We almost forgot about Mitoma, but he ended up scoring at the weekend as well. So, between the two of them, an exciting couple of wing attackers that they have there. The other guy that I'm like just gonna wait and see how good he can really be is Delict. I think I know that his career has not soared to the levels that we all expected when he was signing for, I think it was Juventus, it was Juventus when he was signing from Ajax. But he's still a solid player and had delivered a pretty solid performance for Bayern last season. And I don't think any of the Bayern fans wanted to lose him. So I think he could be that guy in the center of defense that United needed to play the line and play the tactics that Ten Hag wants to play along with Licha. So it could be a potentially game-changing signing for them. So I'll be cautiously watching that one as well. All right, just wrapping up on this episode. Like I said, we have a few things in line for next week. We'll be talking about the title race. We'll obviously be talking about some other teams that we couldn't cover today. But before we go, we have to say that the Talky Taka Fantasy Premier League is back, and we have a lot of people already signed up. 23 people, and that just means I'm closer to 20 in my rankings, and we've not had a good start, let me put it that way. Anybody from the Talky Taka League, I am going strong at rank 19 after game week 1. But I would recommend all of you to join. We are not the kind of hosts that dominate the top of the league, so you guys can come in and win this league and talk about it to us. Maybe we'll invite you on an episode as well. So don't forget, we'll share a link for the league along with this episode. So don't forget to click that link and join our league, and stay tuned to the Talky Taka podcast. See you next week. Bye bye.